In this tutorial, I'll show you how you can create a side-by-side bar chart, how to make it conditional so you can see the distribution within another variable, and how to create a stacked bar chart. Specifically, this is going to be looking at two different categorical variables from the Oregon PUMS housing record data from 2023. These are the two charts I'm going to show you how to create in this tutorial. Let's go to our data. Under our data tab, we can see that we have a large data set with lots of columns and lots of rows. To get started making a bar chart, we need to first create a table of values, and we can do that most easily in Excel using a pivot table. So to get started, click anywhere in your worksheet and go up to Insert. Under Insert, select Pivot Table. Under Pivot Table, the default will be to select all of the data in your worksheet and put it into a new tab down here below. We want this to happen. We like the default, so we're going to press OK. Now we can see that a new tab has opened up named Sheet 6. From here, we can look over on the right-hand side and we can see all the different variables that were in our original data. In this example, I'm going to use this variable access iNet. This is access to the internet. I'm going to drop this down into rows. The next variable I'm going to choose is the tenure variable. Now I can do a couple of things here to find this. I can scroll down until I find it, but when you have a lot of variables, that can be really tedious. So instead I'm going to search it. I know that it's labeled TEN. I'm going to grab this and drop it down into my columns. Now notice over here something's happening with the original pivot table. I can see that my row labels, that's for access internet, are 1, 2, 3, and blank, and my column labels are 1, 2, 3, 4, and blank for the tenure variable. Now everything in the middle is blank. What we want there, we want our counts where these two things intersect. So I can drop either of my variables, and I'm just going to select 10 since it's quickly available here, down into values. Now notice that it creates the sum of values, and we see these now sums within here. Thing is I don't want a sum. Instead, I want the count of values. So I can use this drop down here on a Windows machine. You'll see the little caret. On a Mac, you'll see a little I. So you can drop that down and go to Value Field Settings. Under Value Field Settings, I want to go from a sum to a count and press OK. Now I can see the count of values, and the overall grand total should match the number of rows in my original data set. Now I also see that there's blanks within this table. I don't want those, so I can select either drop down here and deselect the blank and press OK. Now from here, I could create my side-by-side bar chart, but because I want to create a conditional chart that shows the distribution of one variable within another, I'm not going to do that here. Instead, I'm going to go back down to count of tenure, and I'm going to go to the value field settings to create a percentage within each column. So I'm going to go to the show value as tab, and instead of no calculation, I'm going to do percent of column total. This will give me a percentage within the tenure variable of who does and does not have access to the internet, and press OK. Now I can see that the 100% are at the bottom of the columns. And so we can see that the internet variable is within the overall tenure variable. From here, now I can start to manipulate this data to create my plot. I'm going to highlight just the data, not the totals, copy it, and paste it into a new location. This will make it easier for me to edit values for my plot. Once I paste, I notice that my percentages come over, and if they don't, I can click that this should be a percentage and that I should also maybe truncate the values a little bit if I want to make the table a little nicer. Now, I can highlight each one of these values and change them. So right now they're 1, 2, and 3. But if I look at the data dictionary, I can see what they actually represent. So for the access to the internet variable, I can see the different outcomes, and I can highlight these and just copy them over into my Excel worksheet. That makes it a little bit easier for me when I'm adding these different labels. So what does 1 represent? It represents yes and how, by paying the cell phone company. So I'm just going to label that by paying. The second one is, it says yes without paying the company. So they do have access to the internet, but they're not paying. So yes, no pay. And the last one, option 3, is no access to the internet. So this is going to just be labeled as no access. Now, the labels for tenure, I can again find by going to the data dictionary. Now, if it's hard to find them right away, I can use Command or Control F, depending on you if you're using a Mac or a PC, and I can search for it. So I'm going to search for tenure, and I'm going to notice that it's going to pop up down here. This is exactly what I needed. And so I can copy over these values again and paste them over into my own sheet so I can start to label these values. So I can label them now. Once I make the labels, it'll be much easier for me to interpret my plot. Now I can highlight my table, go up to Insert, and under Insert, select a bar chart. I'm going to select this 2D column chart. And right away, I can see my distributions of whether or not somebody is getting internet by paying, getting internet but not paying, and those who do not have access to the internet. Now, there's a couple things that I can do to change this plot. Something that I like to do is go to the Quick Layout button. Quick Layout will change the layout of my plot without me having to select a lot of different options. You can play with this a little bit and decide on which one is the best for a clear data visualization. I personally like the one with the chart title and the percentages on top of the bars. I think this is especially helpful because the yes, no pay, and no access to the internet categories are pretty low in each one of our tenure groups. So I'm going to select this layout too, and then I'll change my chart title. Once I put in my chart title, I can then change colors if I want to as well. You can go up here to the different options that are defaults if you'd like. Here, I'm going to select this third palette down. I like the bright orange, and I like the distinction in a darker color for the less represented groups. Now, the last thing we want to do is we want to create our final chart. What I can do, instead of recreating all these labels, I can copy this chart and I can paste it to a new location. This is a little trick. Now I can then edit this chart. So notice that here I can go under Chart Design and I can go to Change Chart Type. Under Changing Chart Type, I can choose then instead a 100% stacked column chart. I want to select this first one that has the same variables down at the bottom and press OK. Now, something else I notice about this is it doesn't have a column on the left side. So I'm going to go back to Quick Layout and I'm going to choose one of the layouts that has the percentages on the left-hand side and has a chart title. That's going to be Layout 1. Now, something to also notice here is that this is kind of funky. It goes from 75% to 100%. I want my axis to go from 0% to 100%. So I'm going to double click this axis and notice that the minimum bounds is 0.75. I'm going to move this to 0 instead of essentially 75%. Pressing enter, I can see that this goes down all the way to 0%, and this stacked column chart makes a little bit more sense. If I'd like, I can delete these grid lines so it has the best data ink ratio. And this is how you can create a conditional bar chart and a stacked bar chart. These two charts are most appropriate when you want to compare two categorical variables.